I've been thinking, how do the laws get found when they don't know where to go? And I've been shaking, not many more twists and turns before I find the road. And I've been hoping for sunrise. I heard the dawn
Welcome to the
hope
Purpose
can meet me
Podcast with
like
Dr.
the
Jazz,
way
where I'm your host, Dr.
home.
Jazz, and we journey to
Just
purpose
give me
together. As you all know, we are in
sunrise. There
season
is a
4,
myth
where we
that
are
when you're
talking
in the
to
mist,
people
you
who
can't
believe
ever
that their
feel
purpose and their
cold.
occupation are
You
intertwined.
can't
So,
ever
with me
feel
today, I have Miss
cold.
Jannette. How are you?
I am
And let the
peachy.
Oh, I love that. I love
sunrise
that,
on
Miss
this
Jannette.
road.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start stealing that. I don't know how I'm gonna incorporate it because it's not gonna sound right coming out my mouth, but I'm gonna figure it out. Figure out how to. As you all know, those devote listeners to the podcast, I just introduce our guests and we dive right in. And if you are not a devote listen to our podcast, this is your time to click subscribe. No matter where you're listening, click subscribe, and you can send us a text message. All right, we do respond. Okay, so let me introduce Miss Jannette. Jannette, like many other women she works with, is hashtag not done by a long shot. She is a business development expert with over 40 years of strategic planning, sales, and marketing experience, and she is still stupidly in love with what she does. She has been a corporate trainer, taught marketing and entrepreneurship for universities and college, and done her time in the corporate trenches in roles ranging from print shop press operator to VP professional services for a Canadian Fortune 500 company. Her breadth and experience and depth of expertise help you succeed at whatever stage you are at. She is passionate about working with maturepreneurs to identify, claim, and position their value so they can make meaningful differences in a magnificent living. Her other major passions, besides Scrabble and ziplining across jungles on 3 continents and counting, is facilitating personal transformation. Jannette is dedicating to helping experts and business owners get the 4 inches between their ears working so their business can work. Oh, I love that. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Boy, they sent you the long bio.
Oh, yes. I was like, I read what I got. And I want you to know I asked her how to say maturepreneur right before we started. So I'm very proud of the fact that I said that correct. Okay. All
Yes,
right.
yes.
All right, Miss Jade. So my first question is always, what does purpose mean to you?
Oh, this is a great question. It's one of the things I'm super passionate about, and I'm glad that you're bringing it out in the world because I think it's really important. To me, purpose is not something bestowed upon us. A lot of people think purpose and mission is, something we come in with. I call it your why we do what we do. I do think I call it a thread that weaves through the tapestry of our life. I think
Mhm.
it's with us our whole life. My definition of your why or your purpose is what you're healing from the past and what you long for the future for yourself and others. It's the intersection of what you're healing from your past and what you long for yourself and others for the future. And that's why we do what we do. We get pushed by the past, pulled by the future, and
Mm.
it is our unique I call it our unique night note in the choir. And the choir just doesn't sound as good without our note in it. So when we are finding our purpose on purpose, living into our why, then we're more aligned, we're happier, we're doing kind of the work we want to be and should be doing in the world, and we're singing our unique note. So that's what I call it.
Okay. So I've done this podcast for 4 seasons now. And no one has ever talked about like the past and the future meeting. That is such a unique definition. And I am so interested in that. So, how did you get to that definition? Because I'm processing it in my own life, right? And I'm just like, how does my past inform what I'm doing now? Am I now being informed by who I want to be in the future, right? So I'm always like, I'm very introspective. So I'm thinking about these things as you're talking. And I'm like, I guess they are. Like, I'm gonna have to like go think about it after the podcast some more. But I'm like, I guess that is how, my life is being shaped. So how did you get to that definition?
Well, I've done about 35 years, 40, almost 40 years of personal development, facilitation of personal development courses, and teaching, coaching, certification, a lot of the inner work, and a lot of my own inner work. And I think most people recognize that a lot of our beliefs come, well, all of our beliefs come from when we're young. Like they get
Mhm.
formed when we're very young. And that shapes how we are being, who we're being. If we've got limiting beliefs getting in the way, they block us, our
Mhm.
success, they block our abundance, they block relationships. If we've got supportive, healthy beliefs that empower us, then they make us more successful in those areas. And those all got formed when we were very young. And so when we heal whatever that is, those wounds, we become healthier, happier human beings. But
Mhm.
I think that, whatever your frame of reference is in terms of God, universe, etc., whether this is a school for your soul, whether this is, your 49th time around, whatever your beliefs, I think we can all agree that there is more to us than just day-to-dayness, just our
Yeah.
body, just our thoughts, and more to this world in terms of the opportunities to learn lessons, to grow, to be better human beings. And so a lot of that gets formed, how we are going to be gets formed when we're younger. How much we come in with, that's up to your frame of reference and belief system. We all have things that we want to heal and fix, and that's often what we end up doing in our life. For many people, that's what they turn into their work, or they do it in their personal life. And there's things that we want to create in the world, the difference that we want to make. Some people, they're all about animals. Good, that's great. That means animals are taken care of and I don't have to.
Mhm.
Some are all about kids, and that's great because then that means I don't have to, right? We all have our thing that we're passionate about, or care about, and that's awesome because that's the piece of the universe that we get to take care of, that we get to love. And um, when we focus on those pieces of what pulls us forward and what we want to create and make better, then that's our contribution to the future. Um, the way you phrased what you said when you were thinking about it reminded me of something that I just learned recently. It's a little bit of a segue, but um, I don't often think much about legacy. I don't have children.
Mhm.
I have a lot of family that I'm attached to. Like I'm a half cousins, half brother, half sister kind of thing. And so legacy was never a word that really resonated with me. It's kind of like when I'm done, I'm done. If something carries on, great. If it doesn't, oh well. My focus was on doing the best I can while I'm here. But I heard a definition that someone said that our legacy is what we want to leave that makes us be who we want to be right now.
Mm.
So our legacy is what informs who we're being right now.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that definition of legacy I can get behind. That throwing that anchor into the future that makes me be who I want to
Mhm.
be in order to create that really appeals to me. So yeah, I think from all my personal development work and wanting to and doing work with people to pull up the anchors from the past so that they're free to move forward, and really feeling like when we live into sing our note in the choir or live into our why, we do our best work, we are really contributing. That's where that definition came from. That and some inspiration and downloads and so forth. But I think a lot of it is just working with people around what helps you be the happiest and most aligned and most on track, in alignment, in integrity. And that, doing the work on the past and getting clear on what you want to be and create now so that your future is the way you want it to be, that just seemed to work for me.
I love that. So I also don't really think about legacy. I actually talk about it on another episode this season where that's what she was talking about, like creating a legacy for her family. And I was like, wow, I just don't think like I do, but I don't in the way that she thought about it. I always think about the impact that I'm making now. I'm
Yeah.
not thinking about, oh, this podcast will be on YouTube and when I die, YouTube's free. So when I die, it might still be there. I don't think about that. I think about who's listening today and what impact am I making today. So that's interesting that you even brought that up because I was like, yeah, I actually don't really think like I don't, but I think about me and like what I feel I'm called to do in the future, but I don't think about like yeah, I just think about very present, which is so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. That's why
Yeah.
it was never kind of a pull. People even as a business coach, thinking about what do you want to create and leave, and what do you want your exit strategy to be, and how do you want your business to live
Hmm.
on. None of that really is like, no, I'll create good content now, and if it lasts, awesome. If it doesn't, it helps some people now.
Yeah, that's how I kind of am too. Like it helps some people now. But I do think about like who I want to be, like how healthy do I want to be? I often think I tell people all the time, like Betty White ran a mile a day to the day she died. Like I want to do that. Like I want to live to be 100 and run a mile a day. Like those are the things. Well, don't quote me on that. I don't know if it was the day she died, but I know she was running a mile a day till she was really, really old.
Yeah.
So like that type of stuff. I think about that type of stuff, but I don't think about any of the things that I create and how they are moving forward. So that was good for me. Okay. That was good for me. Yeah. Uh, can you tell us like more of your journey about how you got to your purpose?
Mm.
Because we talked a little bit before I push record about like your consulting, but also I don't want to say your why business. I don't
But
really know what you called it, but
yeah, I'm known as the why whisperer, and
yes.
it is a big part of the work I do. As a business coach, a lot of what I do is support people with kind of what I call the outer game of business. So marketing and strategy and business models and all of that. But because of a lot of my personal development side, then a big portion of what I believe is um, I heard this great quote one time that if you want to create transformation, I asked the speaker the difference between a transformational speech and an educational speech. And he said, if it's educational, I need to figure out what they need to do. If it's transformational, I need to figure out who they need to be in order to do that.
Mm,
And so I've been committed to transformation my whole life. So that's why I work a lot with who do you want to be and what's the being needed for you to do the things that will give you the results that you want to have. And a lot of the personal growth work has been about be do have versus just do do, which is a lot of
mhm,
what our society is about, is do do.
mhm.
So
Ah!
um so I think, but really truly where this all originated, I got to tell you a little story from when I was young. I was 5, and I really wanted the book Heidi. I grew up with lots of drama and trauma and addictions and violence and so forth, and so books kind of became my sanctuary early. I learned how to read early, and I wanted the book Heidi. I don't know why, but I really wanted that book. And so I begged my mom, and I begged her and begged her and begged her, as only a very determined Aries child can, over and over and over. And finally, one day she turned around and said, "No, we can't afford it." And I was like really shocked. But I wasn't shocked by what she said. I heard that all the time. I was shocked by the look on her face, Jasmine. There was so much shame and anger and frustration and sadness and despair. And I remember vividly, I can still see it right now, seeing that look and deciding I never wanted to see that look on another person's face again. Not hers, not anyone else's. And and so I decided right then that that was kind of what I was about, even though I didn't know what that meant, even though I didn't really, I was 5, but I made that kind of spiritual promise. That was my work to do. And and then kids, we don't overcomplicate things. So um no money, get money, right? So
Right.
what do I do to get money? and I had seen some people in our neighborhood have a garage sale. So I thought, okay, I'll have a business. I'm going to have my very first business, and I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
have a garage sale. And so one day when mom was at work, I'm sure someone was supposed to be watching me. I hauled everything out of the house that I could, and I priced it all, small knickknacks and small furniture and household appliances, whatever I could carry. And I priced it, including my toys and stuff. And I was so proud when mom got home because I made $13.72. I remember to this day how much I made. I
Wow.
could count money. I think I came out of the womb entrepreneurial because I could count before I could talk or anything else, right? And so I ran up to her and like, mom, now we can get the book, right? Problem solution.
Yeah.
She didn't see it that way,
Yeah,
Jasmine.
because you sold her stuff.
She did not see it that way. She was not very happy at all, especially when she found out of what I sold. I got spanked. She took my money. I had to go back around the neighborhood and buy everything back. The kids wouldn't sell me back my toys. The adults mostly all sold us back our stuff. Um, and I didn't get the book, at least right away. And so many people would say not a very good, successful first venture, but I think it was because I learned some important lessons. One is you can take your destiny into your own hands. You can solve problems and create what you want with business.
Mm-hmm.
Second lesson was don't go into business with family. Um,
Ah,
kind of, but yeah. And then the third one was that it really is a vehicle for being able to say yes to life, that
yeah.
business can help you say yes to life. So that was the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. That's what fused together for me the business and having a yes life, being able to say yes to yourself and your desires and to the world and to your work and so forth. And ever since then, that's been my path. My purpose is to put together business and that inner ability to say yes to yourself and to life. And
I oh,
that's how I
I'm
came.
sorry.
That's okay. I was just going to say, so that was one of the biggest parts of creating my purpose in the world.
I love that story because most entrepreneurs that are your caliber of entrepreneur were entrepreneurs the whole time. Like I that's what that story spoke to me was like, of course you said there's no money, let me go make some, and you found things and you so like that make I'm telling everyone that I listen to that I like admire, they're always like, yeah, I just made lemonade or whatever. I just created something out of nothing. I created the solution from the problem. So that was a good story. I and I knew you were going to get in trouble. I saw the beginning. I mean, I saw
Yeah,
the end from the beginning that this was not going to go the way you thought it was going to go.
exactly.
Yeah, but
By the way, she did eventually buy me the book. Just
okay, well,
some
that's
people get very
good.
distressed if I forget to add that.
Yes,
I did eventually get the book, and it actually remains my favorite book to this day.
I love it.
Yeah. So partially because it was so hard to come by.
I love it. I love it. She
And
still took care
speaking
of
of
you.
lemonades, that was actually my second business venture. Well, I babysat a bunch of things, but when I was 7, I had my first franchise because I had a lemonade stand and I was on a busy corner, but there were 3 other corners that were really busy and they couldn't get to me and I couldn't get to them. So I don't know if I don't think you're old enough to remember those TV tray sets where
Hmm.
there were 4 TV trays.
Hmm.
I had 3 other TV trays. So I thought to myself, I got the TV trays, I made 3 other signs, I got my mom to make 3 more jugs of lemonade, and I went and recruited 3 of my friends. I set them up on the corners and they got to keep 50% of what they sold and I got 50%. So that was my first franchise.
Your mind works in a way that I admire because I don't want to say I'm not business minded because that's not true. But I'm very like, oh, everyone can have everything. Like I'm not thinking about the bottom line. I'm thinking like, how do I help this person? So I love that. I love that your first franchise was a lemonade stand and your friends made money, you made money. It's a win-win.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And all those other drivers got lemonade that they buy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
I love
It
that.
is actually a really good lesson in life, is how do we enroll support so that we can serve more people? And
Yeah.
whatever your purpose is, if you're playing a small game with it, like you're just
Hmm.
trying to do it yourself and push yourself, maybe that's not the best way to do it. Maybe you enroll other people in your purpose so that you can be of service to more people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So I really do want to dive into this like why whisperer thing. Because when you said it, I was like, oh no, that's really dope. So like how did you become known as a why whisperer? How does that incorporate in your maturepreneur? I'm gonna say it all the time that I know how to say it. Your maturepreneur business.
Yes.
And like how do you help people through those two things?
Um, Great questions, and there's lots in there. So one, because of the personal development stuff, that's always been an aspect of wanting what we do to be meaningful, wanting it to be purposeful for people. And so how do we figure out what our purpose is? Because that's often a big question that people have. Well, what is my purpose?
Mm-hmm.
It's, to me, it is, like I said, that thread that weaves through the tapestry of your life. So my purpose is that I want you to get that you matter and live like you do. So
I
that
love
came
that.
out of that wanting a yes life for people. Well, why do I want that yes life for them? Well, because they're important and because they matter. And why else does that matter to me? Because I always wanted to matter. I wanted to get on the list. I never mind top of the list. I just wanted to get on the damn list. And um, so my longing was to matter, and that's what I see with other people. We often, see what it is we long for. And so I started to really work with people on purpose, to help them make not just a meaningful, not just a good income, but also impact. I think we need both. We need purpose and profit. And
Yeah.
I'm a big stand for the and. I mean, my last name's Anderson, so I got to be a stand for
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
And not either or, because I grew up with a lot of either I can have this or that.
Mhm.
Not a lot of both and so I wanted to really shift that for myself and others. Um, and so I think what people get confused by is, I call it our stand. Our stand is the way that we live into our purpose. So my expression of my why has shifted many, many times and gotten expressed in corporate situations or in my own business or in my volunteer work or wherever. Our stand is what we're living into in that moment, and that changes.
Mhm.
You can express your purpose as a mom, you can express your purpose in your church, you can express your purpose in your business, and your business may change, but that it's the underlying theme. And so um, when I work with people, a lot of what I do is help them figure out what their why is. So can I give you a couple of quick little exercises that people can do to kind of
Yeah,
get with them?
I was gonna ask you, and you gonna
So,
do them
yeah.
on me. Wait, I'm scared. Don't do them on me. Never mind, just do them.
Okay.
I don't
Well,
want I don't want to reveal too much about myself today, so no.
oh, I don't know, you might. So here's some of the things that you can do. But what I want to preface this with is, if it's often easier for other people to see and hear us than we can see and hear ourselves. We're kind of
Mhm,
like, inside the pickle jar. We can't see the label, right?
mhm,
And I often say that it's right on the end of our nose, and it's really hard for us to see what's right on the end of our nose unless someone can help us pull it back and go, oh, okay, now I can see it. So one of the things that there's a bunch of different little quick exercises that will give you a way to different ways to access. So first of all, what's your stand in the world? What do you stand for and what do you stand against? So just spend some time writing that out. What do you stand for? What do you stand against? Um, that will start to give you some clues into what matters to you.
mhm.
The second exercise is, what's your soapbox? What do you rant about? And if you think, oh, I don't rant, just go ask your friends and family. Yes, you do. They'll tell you what you rant
I
about.
know what I rant about.
Yeah. You know what's really, well, I don't know if it's funny, but it's funny to me. One of my biggest pet peeves is people who leave their cart in the middle of the aisle in Safeway or Sobeys or whatever store, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so I was like, what is it about that? Because it just really pisses me off.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, oh, I get it. It's that it's all about them. They don't think about anyone else. They
Mm.
don't think about their impact on other people. Okay, so what is it about that? People who don't think about their impact on others can often be detrimental, or, having grown up with people who had a negative impact, um, it's not always safe.
Yeah.
So what is it that I want? I want people to be considered and valued and taken into account. I want them to matter. And so it comes back down to, my purpose is for people to understand that they matter, and so does that other person,
Yeah.
and to act accordingly. And so you can
That's so interesting.
thread back to just kind of dig down. So what do you rant about? Why does that matter? What's the issue with that? And what's underneath that? And what's underneath that? And what's underneath that? And you drill down, you're going to get to an end of the thread that gives you an indication, again, of what do you really care about? What really, really matters to you? So that's another.
Wait. This one I
Okay.
do feel like I need to say, because this
Okay.
is helping me. Okay, before we go to the next exercise. So I read about two things.
Uh-huh.
I rant about health and like what people eat, because I'm in America, you're in Canada, but like they trying to kill us. They might delete this podcast episode, like the FDA may come for me, but they trying to kill us here. And it just frustrates me
Yeah.
that like even people who try to be healthy, it's hard to be healthy because even the healthy things are unhealthy,
Mm,
right? Like when you look down at the ingredients and you're like, it's a juice, but yeah, but there's 56 grams of sugar, like, so that is the first thing I read about. And I know my solution to that. I already got the solution. And the second thing I read about is I am annoyed with people who do not know themselves.
mm,
And it goes back to my purpose of helping people find and pursue their purpose. Because I think you can't really pursue your purpose fully until you know who you are.
mhm,
And people that don't know themselves are just so insecure. And I'm just like, I don't have time to babysit your insecurity. Go
mhm,
figure out who you are so we can move on. Like that is like my pet peeve. Like I actually get uncomfortable around insecure people. Like it is so, I just don't know what to do with you, because I
mhm,
know that you are acting this way because you are insecure in something, and because you don't have purpose and you don't have intention, you just are acting, you
mhm.
know? So, oh, that was good for me. Thank
Good.
you,
Awesome.
Miss Jannette Anderson.
Okay, and then Jasmine, what I would suggest is, and anybody listening that kind of relates to that is, and what's underneath the fear, the frustration, the anger, the judgment, whatever, about insecurity? Is it that insecure people aren't safe to be around? Is it that they are takers? Is it what is it about the insecurity that makes it uncomfortable, bad, wrong?
Okay, wait, we ain't going that far. Hold on with
Won't go
hold
that far, but I would
hold on.
just to drill down on later. So, and then when you get that, what might be under that? Because basically what we want
Hmm.
to do is get to a bottom line of why is that thing the thing that gets us, and what is the need that's trying to be met? Because that's really what we want to figure out. When we figure out what that need is that's trying to be met, then we can A, get it met nice and cleanly and directly, but B, it's a big clue on something that's really important to us, something that's probably part of our purpose. So awesome awareness, and just keep going with that, because that'll get you.
Wait, how far down am I supposed to go? Because now I'm thinking about the second level, and I'm like, okay, when I get to the bottom of that, how much further can I go?
Until it feels like the end of the thread, until you go, yeah, that's the thing. And you'll probably have a sense of that's it. That's the thing that's really the bottom line.
So why am I uncomfortable around insecure people? I think it is because they're like they live life willy-nilly, and that's that instability. People think I'm unstable, so I'll share with you. Like people think I'm unstable because I move a lot, and it seems like I'm always doing all different types of things. But for me, every move I make is intentional. But for people who are insecure, their movements are not intentional. And
Mhm.
I think that's what is like makes me uncomfortable, because I'm like, you don't even know why you're doing it. You're just doing it.
Yeah,
Stop that. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. So
Hmm.
So I'm willing to bet, and we don't have to go here. It's all good, but I'm just, because I'm sure there's people listening who will relate, is that intentional is a key word. The opposite of that might be chaotic, might be don't think about it, like
Mm-hmm.
what is the opposite of that? And I'm willing to bet you probably grew up with some of that and it impacted you. The lack of planning, the lack of safety, the lack of security, there's something there that intentionality is really important, being planful, being thoughtful, being intentional. So just looking at what is the opposite of that and how did that impact me when I was young, because that's often what we're pushing away from. And so kind of digging down, that's why it's easier to do with someone else, because often they can just ask you the questions because they're not in the pickle jar with you.
Yeah.
So great work, and just keep playing with it, right? Like it's not
Yeah. I
not
didn't
a
grow up in a chaotic environment, but that doesn't mean just because you grew up in a quote unquote stable environment does not mean that parts of it was not chaotic, right? Like, and I'm not ignorant to that fact that there may have been a section of time that felt chaotic to me that has affected me, but I grew up.
or the other side of it could simply be that you got lots of accolades and pushes towards being intentional, being controlled, being reliable, being
Yeah.
whatever those words are. And that's where your value came from. And so that's what's valuable. Therefore,
Okay,
those,
wait, this feels more,
yeah.
that feel more. Okay, what's the next exercise? Because
Okay, next
okay, all
exercise.
right, okay,
Okay.
because
The
that is
next
it.
the next exercise is, if I could pass you this magic wand and you could wave it and change one thing about the world, other people, or yourself, what would that be? And that also, write that down and just see, look at that. All of these exercises, what I encourage you to do is write it down, write top of mind. Don't analyze it and try and get into analysis paralysis. Just write down what's there. Leave it, set it aside for a day or two, come back to it, read it as if you're reading about someone else. That person, be curious about them. What are their answers? What might be behind that? What's the common thread? What do you notice about that person? What do they really care about? You're going to start to see it with fresh eyes, and you'll get a sense of a theme or a thread that runs throughout all of these things, or a common denominator. And that'll give you some clues as to your why. And then the last exercise that I encourage is write down 5 significant events from your childhood. Significant to you, they might have been big, they might have been small, it might have been, sexual trauma, it might have been your mom didn't make cookies for the bake sale, whatever it is. Write down 5 significant events. They might be positive, what you deem positive. Most of them are likely negative or traumatic or difficult, because that's often what we remember a lot. Write down the significant events, and with each one, just the what of it. So like just a point form, this happened. You don't have to go into it in great detail.
Mhm.
What was the feeling that little girl or that little boy had? What was their feeling? Not the adult looking back, but that little girl at that time. How did she feel? Was she scared? Was she lonely? Was she not? What did she think? What did she feel? And then, if you can, as much as you can, and especially challenging for some people who blocked their childhood or whatever, but go to as early a memory as you can. If you are one of those people like me who don't remember their childhood, go back as early as you can. And what was the story that they made up about what happened, or about themselves, or about the world? So I'm trying to think of a really brief story. My mom was married to a very violent man. I really wanted a dog. We were very lonely. I begged for it. We got away. We escaped. He found us. He tracked us down. When he found me, walking home from school one day, he came and he put this dog that I had begged for in my arms. And it was a little miniature collie, which is the dog I wanted, and it's licking my face and squirming and happy. He takes the dog from me and says, "If you get your mom to come back to me, you can have the dog."
Oh my
Gets in
goodness.
his car and drives away. It's a short version of the story. Now, my dilemma, of course, as a 7-year-old is, do I tell mom about this? Because I really want that dog, but if I do, she's going to be in danger. So am I. I can't tell her. And so I have this awful, decision. So of course I don't tell her. And or I don't tell her to go back. The decision that the little girl made, and it wasn't this articulate, but I know the feeling of the decision was, I have to pay a big price to have what I want.
Mm.
Now, I carried that with me through most of my life, and it played out. So what you do is you take a look at the event. What was the feeling? Terror, sadness, frustration, etc. What does the story that I made up as that little girl? I have to pay a price to have what I want. Big price. Um, is it true? No, but that's what that little girl made up. Then you can look at your life and look at the wake behind the boat. How did that play out? So I can see through my life that story in action, and have done work to reframe that belief, to really overcome it, and to now know that I don't have to pay a price to have what I want. And in fact, what I want flows to me really joyfully and easily, and and it's okay to have what I want in my arms. So that work was part of the work of the why, of the saying yes to life without the price tag, right? And
Mhm.
so when we look at those events and the story that we made up, then we can go back and reframe them. Then we can go back and say, well, first of all, is that true? Byron Katie, the work is a wonderful, fabulous, quick way to do. It's a personal growth workshop on one sheet. And so the first question, it's 4 questions and a turnaround. The first question is that true? So the work I've done is go and look, is that true? No, it's not true. I have to pay a big price. That's just a story I made up.
Mhm.
So tell a better and different story. But it does give me some real insights into my purpose, and it ties to purpose. So when you do that, pick at least one that you do all that work with. Like, of the 5, pick one that was meaningful. And what was the feeling? What was the story the little girl or boy made up about themselves, other people, or the world? And then do the work on, is that the truth? If it's not, what's a better story? Right? And in fact, it's not the truth, it's just the story we made up. So tell a better story. What's a better story? And those, all of those exercises, when you do them, one or the other, or the combination, or the common thread, will give you some insights into your why you do what you do, what your purpose is here. It gives you ways to access both. I call it both the healing and the longing, right? What we are here to learn this lifetime, or however your frame of reference, what we want to learn, what we're here to heal, and what we long for. Those are the threads that will tell you what your purpose
This is good.
is.
I have been thinking the whole time that you've been talking. I'm like, what are significant events? Like, I'm literally doing the exercises like you're explaining it. And the crazy thing is, I can't think of any significant events, which is probably a whole nother thing. Like, I know moments like of my childhood, but I'm like, was that significant to me? Like that is interesting within itself that I can't think of moments that I find are deemed significant in my childhood. Um,
Well, and sometimes they are just moments, but they stick with us
yeah.
for a reason. There's something about them that was important to us. Otherwise, it
Yeah,
would stick with you, right?
yeah. Because this is not about me. It's about you, listener. Okay, okay. But one of them was, I'll never forget. My elementary school had a carnival. It was like the biggest fundraiser that we have every year, and the older kids, part of the beta club, we volunteered. We had to do shifts or whatever, fifth and sixth graders. And I signed up for my shift, and me and my mom. Apparently, I disrespected her that day, and my mom was like, "You're not going." So the way it worked was basically once you get older, your parents are no longer with you. You're with your kid, your friends the whole time. And the
Mhm.
parents are like volunteering or whatever, whatever. And she was like, "You're not going to hang out with your friends, but you signed up to help clean up. I will drop you off when it's time to clean up." And that's exactly what she did. And all my friends were like, "Where have you bit, like we've been, because we run around and we play these games and do all these things. And I don't know why that memory has always stuck with me, but that memory has always stuck with me. And I think it was more of the staying true to your commitments more than like I got punished. Like I think that's the part that stuck with me the most. Like it does not matter. You signed up to clean up, so you're gonna show up to clean up. I bet if I signed up to set up, she would have picked me up after, So
Yeah.
whatever, and that moment has always like stuck out to me. Like this lady really dropped me off at the end of the carnival to clean up, like that. I have always thought about that.
Yeah. So
Always thought about that.
I'm willing to bet that when you make a promise, you keep a promise.
I do.
Yeah.
And I hate when people break them.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate when people break. I'm always like, you could have just told me that you weren't gonna do it. Like,
Yeah.
just call me and say, hey, Jazz, I'm not gonna make it. And I would be like, oh, okay, cool. But me waiting on you or me anticipating and you don't do it, oh, it eats me up.
Yep. So integrity is really, really important to you. People keep
Yes.
words, and that's likely part of the theme of your purpose is about integrity and people being who they say they are going to be. So intentionality and integrity come together in your purpose in some way.
Yes. This is good for me, okay? I encourage everybody to do these little lessons. I'm about to, when I reread, listen to this and I edit it, I'm gonna do every single one of them. Because it's really good. I mean, even if you know your purpose, right? I'm pretty clear on what my purpose is, but I think it helps with the why whisperer part of your purpose. Like it helps me remember the why. And I do believe that our lives have a common thread. I firmly believe that all the experiences, all the relationships, all the connections, they all have a common thread. And yeah. And
Yeah.
and I think for me doing those exercises will help solidify,
Yeah.
like, no, this is why you think the way you think. This is why you move the way you move. So I encourage all our listeners today to do these exercises because this is
Awesome.
helpful for me.
Awesome. Well, now let me just mention really quickly, and I think purpose and why is not just for the sake of navel gazing. It's really practical, and especially in business, in our lives in general, it really helps to know why we want to get out of bed in the morning. So
Mm-hmm.
use your why as a motivator, use it to drive your strategy about what you're building your life around, use it to be in alignment with what
Mm-hmm.
really makes you feel good as a human being. But in your business, use it to differentiate you. Put it in your about us, put it in your bios, put it in your
Mm-hmm.
introductions, because people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. People resonate with you because they have a similar why. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have to be exactly the same, but there's a million people on this planet, millions that do what you
Mm-hmm.
do. So why would I pick you versus the next one versus the next one? It's going to be because of who you are, and your why is part of that.
Mm-hmm.
So use your purpose in your marketing, use it in your sales, use it as a filter for bringing on new team members, use it as an alignment tool in every aspect of your life and your business. Don't just have it be this nice theoretical thing, that you kind of write out and go put on the shelf to become shelf help. Have it be something that you live daily, because it's part of who you are and what you do,
Yeah.
how you do it. So make it part of your marketing, make it part of your sales conversations, make it part of your life.
Can you give an example of how to do that?
Oh yeah,
Um,
this is one of my favorite rants.
okay.
You can go right now for example, go to your website if you've got a website, and if you don't, then you're probably not in business. But if you do, go to your website, go to your About Us page, and I'm going to guarantee you 95% of you, and probably more, I'm a coach and a therapist and a this and a that, or I'm a this and a PhD and a that credential and these letters, and then maybe a little bit more about your journey, and then maybe a little bit of personal information. Flip it. No one cares, frankly,
Mm-hmm.
about your letters and I'm a coach or a speaker or an author. No one cares. So what? There's no what's in it for them. It's got a high so what factor. Don't lead with that. That's a waste of real estate and a waste of their attention. Grab them with what matters, what's in it for them. And so talk about that. Talk about your why from the perspective of how it supports them. So when I say I want you to get that you matter and live like you do, so you can create the yes life you want, because that's what I always wanted, and that's what I want for you. Now you have a sense of what I'm committed to. And then I talk about that from a really practical, some practical points of view in terms of how that can, look in terms of you living into your purpose and prospering from it. That's what they want to hear. They don't want to hear that I'm, been doing this for 40 years and da 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 until later. They want to know what you care about, and they want to know that you care about them. And then they want to know what you can do for them. Then maybe they want to know a little bit more about you in terms of your credibility and credentials and so forth. So pretty much most of you go flip your bio and put your why story at the top. A lot of people balk about that. They go, but it's personal, and why would they want to know that I had to buy this book? Well, I guarantee you're gonna remember more about me, about my Heidi story, than if I told you that I've been coaching for 40 years and that I, have a book and da 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 da. Because everybody says that. No one's told you the Heidi story and why,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
tell them your why you care. We long for connection, especially after COVID.
Yeah.
We long to really connect human being to human being. So be willing to be that real, vulnerable, honest human being, and they will resonate with that so much more than if you're the generic, polished marketing fluff that most people put out. Be real.
Yeah.
And you're going to be more trustworthy. You're going to stand out because that's not all that usual. And people will buy you literally and figuratively more. So whatever, if you're in a job, if you're in a business, whatever, if you're trying to get your kids to, be good in their sport, enroll them in the possibility of your vision. Don't try and be the credentials. Be the
I
human
love
being.
that. No, I love that. And that speaks to me and my find your purpose and stop being insecure. But in order to do that, you have to know what that is. And I think I know for a lot of people, being your authentic self is a whole journey within itself because you were never allowed to do that in childhood. I think I believe that from my generation, I'm a younger millennial, that our parents had plans for us,
Mhm.
and like a lot of people in my generation, I'm learning, um, have had to break out of that whatever plan our parents created for us. And because your whole childhood, I don't want to say acting, because I don't believe that I had to act. I just happened to care about the things my parents care about. But like for my friends, of acting and breaking out of that mold. So in business, it's it can be hard to do that because you're still trying to break out of the mold. Like you said, healing from the past to inform your future. That's not what you said. But healing from your past.
Yeah, like healing from the past and what you long for the future for
There
yourself.
we go. To long for the future. That healing from the past part, I'm in my mid-30s now, not my early 30s. But in my mid-30s, I know a lot of people around my age that are still grappling with I wasn't able to do art, or I wasn't able to, pursue sports the way I wanted, or I wasn't able to whatever. And now in this phase trying to do all those things. So yeah.
Yeah, going beyond expectations to try and really figure out what it is we want.
Yeah.
A really um, challenging journey, right?
Yeah.
Because first you have to give yourself permission to not live up to others' expectations,
Yeah.
and to let go of approval, and to let go of the value that we get from trying to live those expectations. and let it be okay to be who you are. There's a lot of work in that because,
Yeah. It
yeah,
takes a lot of courage.
yes.
Um, and I think being who I authentically am, my biggest struggle has always been not if people like me, because I don't care if people like me. Well, I care a little. I don't want to be unlikable. Let me be clear. But you get what I'm saying? Like people like me. But what I'm saying is for me, it's more so the comments. And I'm learning like I don't care that you think I'm weird. I don't want to hear you say I'm weird. Does that make sense? And once I hear you say I'm weird, I'm like, oh no. And now I have to like shrink myself and not be as weird. So that's what I'm fighting through. Like I'm comfortable in my weirdness until someone comments on it. Then I'm like, oh, I'm making you uncomfortable. That's what it is. This is good for me, making me go deeper. That's what it is. I don't like making other people uncomfortable because I am community oriented and I am community centered. So when I feel like I'm taking up more space that makes other people comfortable, I tend to shrink. Oh, that's good. Thank you.
Well, and what I would say to you and anybody else that's listening is, it's counterintuitive, but do the opposite.
Yeah.
Take up more space, because what it does is gives people permission to do the same.
Yeah.
When we shrink, what we're modeling is that's what they should do too. And the way to help people be braver and bolder is to be braver and bolder ourselves.
Yeah, that's good. That's
So,
good. Yeah, I'm big on like what I'm sorry, I keep looking at this wasp that I don't know how it came into my house. I know you're probably like, what does she keep looking at? It's a whole wasp that's just been chilling. And I've been trying to figure out how I'm gonna get it, how I'm gonna kill it when this is over. But that's I'm so big on like making people feel welcomed and secure, like I mentioned to you, because I move and I have to create a new network every couple of years. I like to do that as fast as possible. So I know what it feels like to be new in a space and not know. And so I'm very sensitive to the community around me in a way that might be unhealthy. It may slow down my progress after this conversation, but yeah, that is one of my core values of like making everyone feel accepted and feel secure in themselves in my space. Like you may not feel secure in the world, but when you're with me, like you're gonna feel secure in who you are. So when I feel that insecurity coming out, I'm like, okay, how can I make you feel comfortable? But I agree, and I'm learning that that's not really my job. And I have learned that over the last couple of years, but it's still a thing, it's still a thing. So
well, and we all, we all have our things
yeah.
that we grew up with and that we did to cope, right? To get our
Yeah.
needs met. And so really, I think one of the best and gentlest and most loving questions to ask ourselves is, what's the need that's trying to get met? And how do I get that need met some other way that's more effective or direct or just really effective? Because, you know, wanting people to be secure, great, but what's the need for you that's trying to get met there? And how do you get that need met? And so whatever that may be, and for anybody else out there, in when you're considering things like your purpose, you're going to bump up against your beliefs, you're going to bump up against your stuff. And that's why it's really helpful to do it in the listening of another person who can really support you in keeping sight of who you are, how amazing you really are. We all have our shit, we all have our stuff, but at our core, human beings are pretty awesome. We
Yeah.
are amazing, resilient, incredible beings. And when we can tap into what it is that is our light that we bring, our gifts, our talents, or whatever you want to call that, and consciously bring that into the world, have that be the gift that we give, then we're going to feel better. We're going to do more good in the world. Often it's tied to being more abundant and prosperous if you do
Hmm.
it well and smartly. And that's, I think, really all any of us can ask for at the end of the day, is that I made the world, my world, a little bit better. I left it better off than I found it. That's really, I think, the purpose of purpose is
Yeah.
keep the world a little better off because we were here.
Yeah, I love that. And thank you for being here today because this has been good for me. So
You
I
are.
know, I know it has been good for our listeners. Wait, I did want to ask you about the
Oh, right. And I
maturepreneur.
was going to mention that. That's right. Okay.
I do
So
want to talk about that for a second.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So as we shift, our demographic often shifts, and I became kind of the brunt of ageism, and it was like, oh, that's not notional, that's a real thing. Well, that sucks. That's got to go.
Hmm.
And so I really started to get interested in and discovered a lot about ageism and a lot about the reality of what's going on right now. There's four major trends. I'll just touch on them really quickly. The largest cohorts of entrepreneurs coming into the business world ever in history is happening right now
Hmm.
by a magnitude, like the hugest cohort. And it's all boomers and Gen Xers. And the reason is that 65% of Canadians and between 50 and 90% of Americans, depending on where you are geographically in the demographic band, cannot afford to retire.
Mm.
That means they have to work. And they're somewhere on the spectrum between food and housing insecurity, and maybe they just can't take the vacations they thought they were gonna. So they have to work, and they can't get work, or at least not work that's appropriate to their expertise and experience and wisdom and so forth. And so they really don't have many choices but to become entrepreneurs. Many of them have never been. And there's very few resources or support for those people to move into that. So there's a couple of other trends that really impact that. But basically, I got really passionate about the fact that there is this huge movement in the world with a great big need behind it and a tremendous amount of expertise, wisdom, and experience that's being lost, that's being dismissed and ignored and overlooked, that we can't afford to lose, and as a society and as a world. And so I'm a fierce advocate for maturepreneurs to be seen and valued, to be advocated for, to get some resources, to create community, because there's just under 1 billion of us around the world, people who are 55 plus and hashtag not done by a long shot, but there's no resources for us. So I am creating community membership network and podcast, my podcast, the Maturepreneur podcast, and an academy and a bunch of different things, a conference next year here in Calgary, to support and serve this market. Because it's this amazing market that no one's paying attention to. So it's like, okay, I got you. So part of where these two things connect is that a lot of older people have lived their whole lives based on their shoulds and have tos and expectations, and get to this point in their life where they probably need to work and or want to contribute, but where, how, what now, what if I'm not those roles, what if I'm not who I have been, then what? So there's a whole bunch of them that are also redefining their purpose, redefining who they are, figuring out who they are now, that they're not who they've been their whole life. And so that's a big part of what I do with them as well, is help them figure out their why, their purpose, how to turn that into what's next for them as they go forward. Because I think we kind of consider our purpose a few major times along the way. Typically when we're teenagers and we're angst ridden about what's my purpose in life and how do I find what I do and all of that. And then somewhere in midlife, we start to ask again. And then when we're older, when we're kind of done all those roles, those are three major times where we go through this whole, purpose existential angst. And so the maturepreneurs I work with are people who are reinventing themselves, who are refiring instead of retiring. And I love what I do. I love working with this group, and I love supporting them in redefining their purpose now and going forward. So that's where it intersects, and that's part of what I do.
I love that. And that's actually when I started my business many, many years ago. And they were asking me like target market. Like I don't know anything about business. So both my parents are entrepreneurs in their own right, but their businesses are based on them. So they have to, it's a service they provide. My mom's a notary, my dad paints houses, you know, so it's like you can only paint so many houses this month if my schedule, you know, provides whatever. So this is the first time in our family that it's like, okay, how do we do this and how do we scale and all this kind of stuff. And so I'm learning all these words. I was not a business major. I know nothing about nothing. And the target audience, you know, question came up. And I thought my target audience at the time was going to be young people who are looking for their purpose and blah, blah, blah. But it actually is this group of people that you're talking about. I have more older clients that are like nearing retirement or, you know, have been retired for a couple years and are like, okay, now what? It's not necessarily like you said, like because they need the money. It's more so like, I'm just sitting here and I have 30 more years of life, you know, what do I need to
Exactly.
do? And that
Well,
is so,
that's part of the problem opportunity. Used to be we retired at 65 and we died at 75. So it was good. It was easy. And all of
mhm,
our thinking is still geared around that, but that's not the reality.
mhm.
Now people are living to, and working into their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. I know
Mhm.
an 89-year-old woman here in Calgary who's just launching a second data technology company. She just took over
What?
20,000 square feet of new office space. She started her first data business, award-winning data business, when she was 69. She's run it for 20 years, and now she's expanding it and starting a second one at 89. That's going to be the new norm. And people,
What?
oh yeah, there's lots of examples like that, but people just don't know yet. And that's the new norm because we're not dying until we're 100 and so, people being born now will live to 130. And so 65 is midlife. And so we got to wrap our brains around both the economics of it, but also the
Yeah.
sociological impacts of that, which is probably something that, is your wheelhouse. And so I think it's really a fascinating time. And we really got to get with the program because it's not how it used to be.
Yeah, I definitely, so my mom, I hope she doesn't mind me sharing her information. Mm. Well, she post like she retired, had a job for 8 years after retirement, and now she's in graduate school, like to get her PhD. So it's
Yeah,
just so interesting to see. I'm not gonna say her age, but a maturepreneur, working still because it's like in my head, I was like, oh, I get, you know, her working because that was a lifelong dream of hers. And then when she was like, I'm going back to school, we were like, what you doing? You know, like now she's going back to school and I'm realizing again that that was a lifelong dream of hers. So she's still pursuing dreams, you know, post
exactly.
retirement. And that is that, like you're saying, like that is the new norm.
Yeah.
Uh, we're
And
so, because that's not my grandmother's generation, right? My grandmother retired and she took care of us, basically her grandchildren. And now that we're grown, she don't do nothing, you know, like, and that, but my parents are the generation under that, you know, and
people,
they are moving and shaking.
yep, yep. They are boomers that are in that stage of who am I and what do I want to do? And I've got another 10, 20, 30, 40 years ahead of me. And that's
Hmm.
part of the challenge economically as well, is people don't plan to be 40 years more, living 40 years more, but they are.
Hmm.
They go back to work or whatever. But they also are still very curious. So I love that your mom's going for a degree. That's awesome. That keeps her
Hmm.
brain alive, that keeps her engaged. And if she applies it somewhere, then power to her. And if
Hmm.
she just does it for her own interest and growth, then power to her on that front too. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It
Awesome
just speaks,
example.
yeah, it just speaks to what you were saying. I don't know, because I'm not gonna lie, as their child or their niece or whomever we're talking about, I'm like, you need to sit down. You're scaring me. You know what I'm saying? Like you're getting old, you're still driving across the country like you're 35, you're not, you know, but also reminding myself that an object in motion stays in motion and the
Mhm.
object at rest stays in rest.
That's right.
And letting reminding myself, no, they need to keep moving
Yes.
because that movement helps the brain and it helps their body and it helps, because I'd be like, why are you driving there? Stop that, and but they need to, and it is good for them. So
It
I'm
is.
it's
It is.
also a learning curve for me as well.
Exactly. I was just going to say, and the challenge is that we have to rethink how we think about people that are older. Because,
Yeah.
people who are 60 now are not 60-year-olds 30 years ago. And 30 years from now, going to be very different than now, or 10 years from now, actually. And the reality is by 2050, 1 in 4 people will be over 55 or 65. I forget which one. So 1 in 4 people, every fourth person is older.
Yeah.
Okay. So that has a huge impact on all sorts of things, the economy, etc. So we really do need to shift our thinking about this,
Yeah.
because if we keep dismissing them as, oh, they're done. They just need to go off and knit and golf and whatever. No, that's not good. It's not healthy. It doesn't help the, healthcare system either. But B, it's just not real. It's not
Hmm.
what is these days. So we got to get over ourselves so that
And
carry
oh,
on.
I'm sorry. Keep going. I apologize.
I was just going to say, we got to get over the old notions of that, because we got ageism in our head as older people, and it's out there, and ageism is just an expectation that someone of particular age acts a certain way. And whether you're young or old, like young people get ageism too. There's
Yeah.
prejudice against them as well.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, I often think about what we're losing knowledge wise
Mm.
when we tell older people to sit down or move around or whatever. Because I'm always like, I want your help, but I want to drive you, or I want to, like assist you helping me. Like that's always like been my thing, instead of like stepping back and being like, so like with my grandmother, I'm always like, I can just go do it. And I'm like, no, she needs to get out the chair. She needs to walk, like, and it's like it's an ageism. Like we think it's like benevolent sexism, where we think we're doing women a favor, but you're actually not. It's like benevolent ageism. Like I'm thinking I'm helping them by doing it for them when I'm actually not. But back to the workforce, there is a set of knowledge and skills that maybe technology, they don't know that or whatever, depending on the person we're talking about. But there is a experience, there is a knowing that we get rid of in the workplace when we make people retire, or, they age out, or we discriminate towards them. And that's what I fear a lot. It's like, no, they know something that I don't know. And if I don't have to go through the trenches, I don't want to go through the trenches, like I can get it from them. So
Right.
that's what I often think about, so the lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
Um, that is that
Yeah.
happens when
We
you
lose
do that.
that, and wisdom, which is not just knowledge or
Yeah.
expertise. We got Google for knowledge and expertise, well, for information. But wisdom is that combination of our humanity meets our know-how.
Hmm.
And not all people are wise. There's lots of wise
Oh,
young,
I know. Oh, I know.
lots of not very wise old people too. But there is experience does give you some perspective that you don't have earlier in life, right? You can be real smart earlier in life, but you just don't have as much perspective over time. So yeah, and I think it's really it's kind of a condoned prejudice. It's one of the last ones. Sizeism and ageism are the two of the really condoned prejudices. And just like all of them, we need to work on outing them and getting over them.
Yeah.
'Cause it's really arbitrary. It's really
Yeah.
ridiculous to say that person's 1 year older, therefore they're not as valuable. It's
Yeah.
like, what now?
How does that even work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Versus that person has one, shade darker skin, therefore they're not valuable. It's like, say what now? It's just,
Yeah.
yeah, all way too arbitrary.
Yeah.
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 Oh, you are a philosopher,
Ah,
Jasmine.
oh, I've been called a lot of things, but never a philosopher. So
Oh,
I'll
you
take
are a
it.
philosopher queen. You bring out lots of deep conversations. That's all.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm gonna have to take that one. I'm gonna take that one too. Peachy and philosopher. Those are the two things I'm taking from this
Awesome.
conversation.
My work here.
It is. So thank you so much for being here on this episode. But my last question is always, if people leave here with nothing else, they have listened to you dissect me and make me get closer to my why. And I hope that they do the same for themselves. But if they get nothing else from this episode, what do you want them to leave here with?
Um, okay, a couple quick things. One is get support with finding out your why. It's often really hard to do on your own. So reach out to me, reach out to Jasmine, reach out to your coaches, find someone who has the ability to to support you in the deep listening for the longing. so that you can find your why and step into it and incorporate it and use it to motivate and inspire you. Because when you're motivated and inspired, you are motivating and inspiring. And that's a real gift to the world. So, um, the last thing I'd like you to hear is that you matter.
I've
And I want you to
been
live like you do.
taken out of the lost
I
without
love
when
that.
they
Thank you
don't
so
know
much for
where to
being here,
go.
Miss Jannette Anderson. All her information will be in the show
And
notes, so
I've
please
been
make sure that you
shaken.
check her
Not
out
many
and
more
follow
twists
her on
and
all her
turns
social
before
media
I
pages.
find the
And thank you,
road.
listener. Please
And
subscribe to
I've
the
been
Purpose
hoping
Podcast with
for
Dr. Jazz, where we journey to
sunrise.
purpose together.
I
And
heard
I
the
will see
dawn
you
of
in
hope
2 weeks.
even light
All
the
right.
way.
Bye.
Just give me sunrise. There is a myth that when you're in the mist, you can't ever feel cold. You can't ever feel